Hi, I'm Nicole wURKen, Research Director for Mad Money, and I'm here with Ross Kenneth wURKen, Personal Finance Editor for The Street, who also happens to be my brother. And welcome to What's wURKen, where we're interviewing young entrepreneurs and thinkers to see what's happening.
Nicole, as our guest today, we have Glen Weyl, Professor of Economics at UChicago, all of 27 years old, and I think he had his PhD when he was 22.
Pretty
and
impressive.
We want to talk about happiness, something we're all seeking, and economists try to optimize it. I was reading The Onion today, and I came across this headline: "Find the thing you're most passionate about, then do it on nights and weekends for the rest of your life." We know that this kind of sardonic view of the world is a reality for many people who can't follow their passions. But you think there's actually an economic benefit to having people follow their bliss?
Absolutely. So people prior to the low taxes that were brought in under the Reagan administration and the first Bush administration were much higher. And that made pursuing wealth much less attractive because the government was taking a big chunk of that money. So people focused a lot more on pursuing callings that they thought were socially valuable, like the Great Society and under Kennedy and Johnson, and the Peace Corps, being teachers, etc. And the reduction in taxes under Reagan, I think, really changed people's sets of priorities. And I think that that was not just harmful for people finding meaning in their lives, but more importantly, for the actual development of the economy.
So now, today, have things changed? Now you think there is a reversion to individuals following their passions, or are we still stuck in this warped zone where we're following following the money? That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know what's happened since I graduated from college, but in my graduating class, nearly 40% of the students went to Wall Street. If you compare that to the 1950s, it was about 5% of students. So there's just been a dramatic shift in the career priorities of students. And I think that the recession brought that a little bit back into balance, but I don't think it's fundamentally changed things, at least judging from the students that I now teach at the University of Chicago.
But you're saying that a progressive tax could be a disincentive for people to go to Wall Street. It could make them go into public service or education.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when people are trying to make a decision about careers, they look at the lives of people that they know that have followed those careers. If they've got, a friend who's in finance and he's got a glitzy apartment in New York, and they've got a friend who is an engineer who lives in a small town in a small house, etc., they're going to be inclined to follow the more natural path, the easier path towards money, finance, consulting, the dominant professions among many of the most educated people in the country now. And I think the really important point that I want to emphasize is not that they choose to make those different careers, but the consequences that has for our economy. Because if we don't have engineers, if we don't have people being teachers, then we're not going to have those educated people who are able to do those jobs in the future. And that's really going to sap the productivity and growth of our economy.
Now, you mentioned taxes in particular, but also what about this risk-averse nature that people have taken in finance and how that's maybe shifted? That now people could pursue a calling as a teacher or something more entrepreneurial that they're really excited about. Are there other outside external factors? I know from my 2 years at Goldman, people are shifting away from that because they're saying, hey, the risk reward is not really there anymore.
Yeah, I think that there have always been these other options, and I faced a choice when I was in school between a finance career and one in one of these other areas. But I think that when you're the government, you need to think about what you can do when we're making decisions as a society about what taxes should be, about what we can do to affect those trade-offs. There will always be things going on that affect those trade-offs that people make that are not under the control of government policy. But I think that when we make decisions about taxes, we should really be thinking about how that's affecting the career choices people are making and what that does for the growth of our economy in the long term.
Absolutely. And when you go to make that choice, something that can make it a little bit easier is an applet. And it seems to me you have one available.
Yeah.
That why is it necessary for economists these days to allow the kids to plug in numbers and see the results?
And
Yeah.
what is an applet? Explain to us.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if you've ever gone on the New York Times' webpage, but they have this little calculator which lets you figure out whether you should be renting or buying a house. So it lets you put in the mortgage payments that you'd be making and the rent that you'd be paying and your views, et cetera, and it gives you all these numbers, and then it calculates out how much better you do renting versus buying. And what I think is so great about that is it empowers the consumer. Rather than there just being, you go to a financial advisor and they just tell you what you should do, it gives you the power to really adapt things to your personal circumstance and take ownership for your own financial decisions with the assistance of this tool. And I think that we're trying to do the same thing for economic research. For too long, people like me, talking heads, have been coming on to shows and saying, here's what the economic experts say. I just told you what I think we should do with taxes as a result of the effects that it has on people's career choices. But you might disagree with me. You might think that finance is really valuable and that teaching maybe isn't so valuable and that engineering isn't so important, that finance and consulting are really important. Well, that's great. If you have those views, what you can just do is go on this website that is available, and you just plug in what you think the productivity of different professions is, what social value they add, and it'll tell you what you should think taxes should be. So rather than you just having to listen to what I think that they should be, you can plug in your own views, and it can help you figure out exactly what you think tax rates should be.
Very interesting. Well, we want to keep incentivizing young people and people of all ages to be pursuing the types of careers that will benefit society as a whole, and that is certainly a work in progress. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Welcome
Thanks a
to
lot,
What's wURKen. Keep checking back with us. We'll be interviewing young entrepreneurs and thinkers each week. Thanks.